a while ago, you may remember where Joe Biden said that he prevented the railroad strike from happening. Now, on Status Coup and on several other shows, we were all quick to point out that no, he didn't actually prevent a railroad strike. The rail workers were looking to strike. What he did was he just got everyone to agree that they wouldn't strike while they're negotiating. That was all he got to do. So basically, they were like, okay, we're going to try to negotiate and reach an agreement. And while we're negotiating, we won't go on strike, but we still might go on strike if we don't reach an agreement. And Joe Biden was like, we prevented a strike. Not really, but that's okay. Actually, that's not okay. It's not okay at all. So let's go to the video. Here's the most recent development in the railroad negotiations.
A third railroad union has rejected a potential labor deal, increasing the chances that more than 100,000 freight rail workers will go on strike. The International Brotherhood of Boilermakers Union voted down a tentative agreement yesterday. All 12 rail unions must ratify their contracts by December 9th to prevent a strike, and it could devastate the nation's supply chain.
Let's go to the CNN piece, Colin. So basically, another union has said no to the deal. The deal is unacceptable. So a third railroad union rejects the proposed contract, further raising the odds of a strike. This is from CNN. A third railroad union has rejected a tentative labor deal, a move that further raises the odds that America's 110,000 freight railroad workers will go on strike early next month. The rank and file members of the International Brotherhood of Boilermakers voted against a tentative agreement reached in September, according to the union in the railroads. The precise margin of the opposition to the proposed deal was not immediately available. The union represents about 300 workers who repair and rebuild diesel locomotives and railroad tracks. It is the smallest of the 13 unions that represent more than 100,000 union members at the nation's major freight railroads. But if any of those unions do strike the railroads, its picket lines would be honored by the other unions, which would shut down a still vital link in the nation's supply chain. So basically, they got to get the unions on board, or we're going to get a strike here. Now, you may want to have a refresher on why they're striking in the first place, what's going on, because whenever you see reports from the corporate media talking about this, they only talk about it through the lens of, oh, this would hurt the economy and inflation, and this might mess up your holiday plans. They never talk about, well, gee, why are these workers striking in the first place? 80-plus hour weeks. And keep in mind, they're on call pretty much 24/7. And what they're asking for is fair pay. Gee, you're making us do more and more with less and less. We're on call constantly. We're forking out our own dollars for our meals. We're not being taken care of. We're away from our families. We're on call constantly, up to 80-plus hours a week. And all we're asking for is that we get health insurance. We get reasonable sick time. In one of the negotiations, they wanted 15 sick days, which is beyond fair. That's totally reasonable, especially given the nature of the work that they do. They were offered one. That was what happened in one of the negotiations. They wanted 15 sick days, and the powers that be said, how about one? We can do one. We can give you one sick day. You're away from your families at weeks at a time. You're on the road. You're on call. You don't know where they're going to send you next. You might be running an entire operation by yourself. We could squeeze you one sick day. One. Have you ever haggled at a marketplace before, where you're trying to buy a belt, it's $15. You offer them one. It's absolutely unreal. So this is what the railroad workers are demanding, which again, they shouldn't even have to ask for this. It should be something that they already have. But this is what happens when you have a work culture like the one we have in the contemporary United States, because you have these people at the top. And like the video from More Perfect Union said, they're only concerned about the shareholders. So they want to stretch the workers to the breaking point. They don't care, because it just means more money for their shareholders at the end of the day. And the only way workers can strike back is by fighting back with their unions. That's the only way. And they've been working without a contract for 3 years. See, workers were expected to make the sacrifices during the pandemic. They were expected to put their health on the line and to show up and to take less during the pandemic. Meanwhile, none of that was reciprocated. We expect you to come in to help keep things functioning because we're suffering through a pandemic. Okay, well, everyone's suffering through the pandemic. Are you going to do everything you can to make sure we have a safe working place? No, we're not going to do anything. When you're bringing in record profits, are you going to share some of that with us, the workers? Nope, we're not going to do that either. We'll share it with the shareholders, but you, nope, screw you. I mean, people have had enough. And guess what? They told us who the essential workers are. We know who they are. We know who the essential workers are. They're not the people trading on Wall Street. That's not essential. You know what's essential? The people who keep the railroads going. That's moving commerce and moving goods throughout the country. The people who keep the supply chain going in the air, on the ground, and on the tracks. The people who keep your grocery stores open, which we're going to have some more on that later in the show. The people who keep the pharmacies open so you can get your medicine. Those are the essential workers. Not these fat cats over at Wall Street. And people have had enough. And now, you know, the big date is December 9th. December 9th is the cutoff. And if they don't reach an agreement by then, and my personal take is they got to go on strike then. They can't because, you know, the date's been pushed back a couple times. I mean, first it was like early November, then it was middle November. Now it's December 9th. If they still mess around, they're like, okay, we're still negotiating. We're still at the table. Just don't go on strike while we negotiate. No. Negotiation time is over. We're going on strike. You got to just go on strike at that point. Otherwise, they're just going to keep offering you crumbs and offering you crumbs. So I hope that these workers get everything that they are entitled to. And if not, there's going to be a strike December 9th.